right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Engel, would you do roll call, please?
Amy Erke. Here. Rich Mueller.
Here.
Aaron Phillips, absent. Lauren Shanerock.
Here.
Pat Tyre.
Here.
Rick Schultz.
Here.
Terry Ingalls here.
Thank you. We have an agenda in front of us this evening. There was a little bit of a late addition there, which I'm totally responsible for, but item number 8 under 11 of the recommended actions, we do have a summary of the superintendent Michael Myhock's evaluation summary with us this evening. So any other additions or corrections, Mr. Myhock?
No, there's not.
I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Tyre, seconded by Mr. Mueller to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any public comments this evening, Mr. Nyack?
There is none.
Okay, then we'll move right into your report, the superintendent's report. Thank
I'll
you.
pass along to our administrative team. If you want to pull that one up, Sue, and I believe elementary is up first.
Always, you always save the best for last anyway, so. I'll just go. Not a whole lot to report, but some of the things that happened last week with our 5th grade going to Eagle Bluff. Always a great trip. I was actually able to sneak out of the building on Tuesday of last week and kind of go see what that's all about. What a fantastic week. I wish I would have been a kid again and an opportunity to do that, because that's really cool. Just the teamwork, the bonding with the students and the teachers and the chaperones and the students was really cool to see that. So I just want to officially thank all of the donors and the staff and the chaperones that went along on the trip, and I especially want to thank our 5th grade team, Mr. Fisher, Mrs. Gilder, and Mr. Sand for organizing it, and hopefully they have a good enough time and they can continue down the road doing that in the future. So thanks to all involved in that. The biggest thing we have going on, Veterans Day, obviously November 11th, we will have our 4th and 5th graders attending the program. I have not gotten word if they're going to be doing any performance in that, but I know they are going to be attending. And then November 11th through 15th is our conference week. So teachers will be scheduling those out here next week. So it's short, sweet.
I got an idea as a thank you to our donors. You could read the list.
I could. If you need me, I'll be back here.
Okay. I'll take it. Thank you, Mr. Pesky.
Yep.
Mr. Berg.
Hello. First off, I want to thank you for the support for allowing the students to go to Lionheart experience, and I sent you some pictures in the short blurb about that, but I also want to thank Mrs. Bentley for the story she wrote. If you want to know exactly what went on, read her article in the Star Eagle. Like I said, there's no way I could write like her, so I'm not even going to try. Okay. We had parent teacher conferences here a few weeks ago. Let's just say we are starting a committee tomorrow to take a look at what we can do to make them better. Not well attended, and we want to take a look at maybe doing something more with an open house, with one last parent-teacher conference or something in that neck of the woods. And you can say everybody has problems. Yes, everybody does, but I don't like to be everybody, so I want to be more proactive than reactive. So we're going to try to come up with some different ideas as to ways we get more parents in the building. And I know it's difficult because of the easy communication, but we still need to find a way to get parents to come in. Fall sports, they're all in the playoffs. All participate this week. Volleyball tonight, football tomorrow, cross country on Thursday. The national convention trip for the FFA, they leave tomorrow morning. I sent you out the updates with all that on there, so hopefully that runs smooth for them. We've got a college and career fair in Albert Lea for 10th through 12th graders coming up. We've got the indoor marching band concert on October 28th, and the first quarter is less than 2 weeks away, November 1st already. Communicated with parents today about, let's not wait until the end, when we've got 2 weeks left. If we've got issues, let's get those addressed. National Honor Society will be on November 6th at 2:30 in the high school gym. And our annual Veterans Day program will be November 11th with Mr. Kopetsky doing the speech this year. Right?
I'm somewhat prepared.
Okay, all right. Oh, one other thing, sorry, ninth grade are going to a career and tech day at South Central College in Faribault on November 1st as well. Questions?
Hey, thank you.
I have a quick question. Did you have parents that called about the conferences and wanted something different besides me?
No, but we want to take a look at, we've done it this way for how many years? And if it's not working, then why do we keep doing it? We get the same result.
Was staff, so do you have some staff that were
We
willing to step up?
have, that's going to be brought up in the staff meeting tomorrow morning, but yes, I already had numerous staff members that were
That's good.
willing to help,
That's good.
so.
Yeah, and it's a frustration because the staff puts work into being prepared for parents and again,
Mhm.
they're busy, but participation is needed in something of that nature, so
Yep.
appreciate you looking at it and trying to find a solution. Any rough idea of what percentage? 10, 20% maybe?
10 would be high.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's a scheduling thing too.
There's a lot of things that go into it, yep. I
Yep.
mean,
You know,
you can
it's-
look at your kid's grades right now, and independent of the day,
Right.
Yep,
if you don't have issues with grades or issues with behaviors, well,
Right.
why do I need to go in there? And, you know, scheduling, other events, things of that nature, yeah, there's a
Of
lot
course.
that involves it. So we're just trying to be a little more proactive and get out there and figure out how we can make it better.
anxious for a solution. Good work.
Partial, maybe. Question?
Yeah, with Mr. Sorum going to FFA convention, I know there was some questions.
Oh,
Okay,
Thanks.
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Macy?
Hey, everybody. All right, so just to give you a few quick highlights through Community Ed. We had screening this past week. We screened a total of 28 children. We normally screen probably, I want to say, about 35 this week, but one afternoon we had to be closed because we didn't have a nurse. I actually reached out to Waseca County Public Health to come in and help us out on Tuesday, and it was fantastic. They did such a wonderful job. Otherwise, preschool is, off to a great start. We didn't have any classes last week because of screening, but the week prior to that, we did Fire Safety Week with our preschoolers, and we visited the New Richland Firehouse and the Ellendale Firehouse numerous times. So the kids had just a blast, trying on the different outfits that the firefighters wear and then spraying the hose. That's always a good fun time. And the New Richland crew actually stopped down at Nancy Jane's Bakery too and had a little treat on the way back for that, so that was fun. Otherwise, just some different classes that we have coming up. ECFE, we've got a total of 13 families and 20 kids, so it's a nice, big, fun group. Otherwise, we have Halloween Kid Fest coming up on the 31st. That's at the New Richland City Hall. And then Cookies with Santa. It's actually usually the first Saturday in December. We had to bump it back a little bit to November 30th because we have our dance showcase on whatever December that is, I think like the 7th. Right, otherwise, school age care, we were open Thursday for MEA break, closed on Friday because we didn't have enough children to be open. We usually have a minimum of 17 kids needed to register to be open that day to at least break even on cost, and we were way below that. Youth Rec, we have, our dance program, 52 kids versus 64 from last year is excellent, and especially because we don't have a New Richland location open because I couldn't find a dance instructor for New Richland. Otherwise, competition cheer, we just have varsity this year. Our performance cheer, we maxed out at 28 girls, And we haven't had any interest beyond the 28th, so I'm very thankful that we didn't have to turn anybody away for that. It's going to be really fun to watch that group progress and see what comes of it this season. Otherwise, youth basketball, Sunday special, it's something new that Annika Peterson is doing with our first and second graders. Those are coming up, I think, beginning November 3rd or 4th. Must be November 3rd. And then youth basketball kickoff is beginning in November. Otherwise, driver's ed's coming up. We had to raise our fees slightly for this upcoming school year. Excuse me. Otherwise, just normal student enrichment. Lego club's doing great. After school art club's doing great. We haven't had our first one, but the first one's on Wednesday this week. Just our normal adult enrichment and recreation. You want to change it, Sue? And then Fields of Faith was held Wednesday, October 9th. They had a great turnout for that again. Youth registration night is coming up. Otherwise, everything is just kind of status quo. And we did have our COPS grant. I'm going to get the name of it here. So COPS is Community Oriented Policing Services, U.S. Department of Justice. It's a school violence prevention program award that we found out about. I think Angie had done some asking around about that. So we worked together writing the grant. It ended up being, I think the total that we were awarded was $202,778 to put towards a PA system, access control entries, more of them, and security cameras. So just Angie, of course, is going to work with the vendor that we select or that we get to decide exactly what we're going to spend all that money towards. But we did end up getting that grant. It's an interesting process writing that big of a grant through the government. But we were one of 3 school districts in Minnesota to receive it. Yeah.
Congratulations and great work, wow.
Yeah, that's definitely
Thank you.
one that I'll
thank
remember,
you,
I think. That was
everyone
awesome.
Involved.
There
Yeah.
were 49 states that were awarded this grant. 203 out of 1,008 applicants received it. So 208, 203 maybe applicants out of the 1,008 applicants that they received. And the award dollars were 73 million in total. And so, yeah, it's pretty impressive that we are one of 3 school districts in Minnesota that got this, and one of the 203 school districts that received it. So out of 49 states. It was a pretty intense application.
I'd like to see the application,
Yeah.
what you actually, no.
I don't know that you would.
I'm
It
sure
was
everyone
very
understands.
specific, very
It
specific.
sounds-
Yeah, I don't know
Wow.
how many pages it ended up being, but it was very specific, and
30
it
some, I
was,
think. it ended up.
Good
Yeah.
for you.
it's a very competitive
Yeah.
grant
Great.
application, yeah.
Wow,
So,
Well, you should be very proud.
Yes.
Good job.
absolutely.
Yeah, Angie told me that. I'm like, I haven't heard anything. We're not supposed to hear anything until I think it was like the beginning of November.
yeah,
She's like, no, we got it. I'm like, what? Like, that's like,
Cool.
yay.
Yeah.
That definitely made my day, probably my year so far.
How'd the cat get out of the bag? How did you first hear that we were awarded?
a vendor contacted me.
Yeah.
A vendor
Okay.
contacted me and said,
You're gonna need some
congratulations on
stuff.
receiving this grant, can we get your business, basically, yeah, and I'm like, what? So I went and asked Macy, I said, Macy, did we get this, did you hear anything on this grant? No, we won't hear until November. I'm like, I'm like, let's check this out a little bit. So we went out there and the award list was out there, and here we are. I think it was Anoka, Pequot Lakes, and
Yeah.
NRHEG.
Yep.
Great.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they said they had $330 million in requests, and $73 million was funded, yeah.
Excellent.
Excellent.
All right, any questions?
On to the next grant.
I was gonna say, yeah, keep your eye on the grant
I gotta
list.
catch up first and then next grant.
Pros.
Need a rest. Need a rest.
All right, thanks guys.
Thank you.
And Jason is out today, but he did leave some notes. It looks like kind of the main key there is world's best workforce, as he reported at one time. We'll never hear about world's best workforce again, because they changed the title. And it's this comprehensive achievement in civic readiness. And I thought there was some other notes below that. There we go, just some of the changes that went along with the name change as well. I think if you click again, it will give you some arrows to another column. The information that I'm going to share then, unless there's any other questions for Macy or principals, I have 4 things on my list. Tonight we're pulling off policy 506 from the consent agenda. I mentioned that too, that we're just kind of fine tuning and digging into that a little bit more. In the past few newsletters, I've sent you policy 503 with the attendance. So be prepared. There is notes in the newsletters, the last couple of newsletters, on some of the changes that we're going to dig into and make more substantial changes of that. So 503 will be in our first reading, will be at our November meeting. I'm also working with our principals here on policy 610, that's the extended field trip policy, and fine tuning that some more and having some of the requirements that we talked about this fall, adding that in some different sheets and whatnot. So we'll have our forms, we'll have that first reading in November as well. So just a little heads up on that. We do have a slight update on our band room and the risers, and that's one of the sheets that you have in front of you. Is I did send this to our Buildings and Grounds Committee that had been talking about this and working with us a little bit more. It's good news. Great news would be, here's our start date and here's our end date that would go along with it, and we don't have that yet. There are some questions that still need to be answered with this kind of proposal, but for the most part, EPS is accepting responsibility and paying the price for the risers as it sits today. Again, some of the clarification is that RWC's prices, will RWC's prices go up? The quote is more than 60 days old. They gave that probably back in July, and so we're waiting for an updated quote from them. Scott did talk to them and made mention that they are going to do their best to keep it as close to the original quote as possible. So again, very encouraging. But there's some creative work in this payment, but the bottom line is we're that much closer to it. I did contact IEA tonight and got some response, and I haven't looked at it. I said that he did respond, but again, this is good. To make it great, they'll start tomorrow and they'll have it done by November 1st, whatever date. And we don't have that yet, so we're getting closer, but it still needs to speed up as much as possible. Any questions on that? There's a lot of information here that again, there is some verification that's needed. There's a new updated quote that's needed, and once we get that information, we can plow forward.
I have a hard time, if the expenses go up, that wasn't our fault.
Right.
That's their fault.
Yep.
And so then we have, they want us to pay the extra because they screwed up.
No, but this is what they had in front of them at the time. And so, that number from RWC, they're meeting that. Now again, the reality is that number probably is going to go up. How much? We'll have to kind of figure that out. And then balance between, if it's a few $100s, and get this done. That's going to be the deal breaker on how much we want to continue to push.
I don't know if we should expect that to go extremely different though, price. I mean, summer versus fall.
Yeah.
I would hope that it isn't. I mean, unless they're going to try and play a card there, I think. But
No,
but-
again, with the conversation that Scott had with them, that they were gonna do
do
their
it at
best
time
to
frame. Yeah.
honor
Good.
that quote. And I guess, and to their understanding, they were on site
Right.
at the time.
No, I understand
And
that portion
there's
of it.
those factors as well, but now they're packed up and gone and have to come back.
Right.
So it's, again, little things, or it's those things that we'll find out on.
All right, well, we'll be anxious to hear the start and completion date.
Yeah,
I'm sure
I'll keep you posted.
is also.
Yeah, yes, he is. He's been very patient, and kudos to him for keeping us cool.
Yeah, please keep us informed on it and
Yep,
keep your foot on the throttle of it, obviously.
yep. The last thing I have is in regards, again, kudos to Angie and Macy on that grant. That is fantastic, a lot of hard work. Today, Angie and I met with our tech company that was providing the cameras and the speakers, and we got a little bit of a surprise message from that they are withdrawing from the project. Their focus in the business is kind of moving directions, and they don't feel comfortable taking on this project with the installation and then the maintenance and whatnot, so it's frustrating in the sense like, we had it done. And we, meaning Angie, and now we, meaning Angie's gonna make some more phone calls and find out, who else is out there for this type of service. CTS was very generous in their apologies that they will turn over all the information, their quote, their drawings, their, floor plans and whatnot to whomever we choose, and they can use that to maybe expedite. Way back when we went with CTS or made the commitment, we could have had that done within, 6 to 8 weeks. But we purposely put it off again to learn about this grant. And so, now it was scheduled for November, December, so that's coming up quickly, but it might not be too much past that if, again, depending on how fast they can come in and look at the quotes and look at the information and provide a quote, and then hope for something after that as quickly as possible. So it might be a, fingers crossed, a January, February type project, but the COPS grant that covers this, I'm very confident that timeline is very sufficient, and actually when Andy spoke with our rep, they encouraged to go out to get quotes and find the best prices and so on and so forth. So time-wise with the grant, we're safe. It's just, we'd like the project done sooner rather than later, and unfortunately, the wait put us in a peculiar situation. We'll move forward. That's all I have for you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayak. Any questions for him this evening? All right, how about any board member comments this evening? If not, just a little information. Next regular meeting is scheduled for Monday, November 18th, and that will be over at our elementary facility. That will start at 6:30. Takes us into the consent agenda items, and Mr. Mayak, would you please introduce those?
Yeah, our disclaimer for our consent agenda remains the same for all items on the consent agenda. The board's been furnished with background materials on each item, or we've discussed it at previous meetings. These will be acted upon with one vote, without discussion. If a board member wants to discuss any of these items on the consent agenda, we'll pull it off from that and we'll vote on it separately. If there's no motion to remove something before we approve the agenda, I'll go through, very pleased to go through a long, lengthy list of donations that have been made to our district here this past month. We'll start with the teacher elementary supplies for $2,400 from Finley's Wings at Work. We had a $5,000 donation from the NRHEG PTO for the inclusive playground equipment. Sponberg donation $1,000 for the playground equipment. Olson Custom Contracting, $250 for a basketball shooting machine. The NRHEG boosters, football boosters, donated $5,156.07 for the sled and pads. The next handful are all for our Eagle Bluff trip. That is the New Richland State Bank of $250, Greg Barch for $20, Team Geneva for $560, Marion Parr for $20, Geneva Fire Relief for $300, Geneva Lumber for $500, Dangry Tools for $100, NRHEG PTO for, I need my ruler, Sue, 2,000. And New Richland Firemen's Relief for $1,000, and the Arcadian Bank for $150, all for the Eagle Bluff. And the remainder of the donations then are all for our inclusive playground equipment. They are Carpenter Coffee Company for $50, First Impressions by Kim for $300, Mike Brecky, sorry, thank you, for $150. Billy Joel Swore Johan for $90. David Wallen for $30. Joyce Meldal for $30. Angela Hoyam for $30. Angie and Jody Rewer for $30. Connie Meyer for $60. Brooke Crone for $100. Sarah Jo Vulcan for $60. A. Summer for $60. B. Strange for $30. Christina Reese for $60, or Reese. Nate Wayne for $120. Angie Osseth for $30. Dan Miskin for $180. Grant Berg for $120. C. Lundeck for $60. Brandon Flatness for $30. Doree Powers for $30. Kathy Simmons for $90. Angie Hoyam for $60 again. Carrie Boondorf for $30. Stacy Simon for $60. Dustin Hagan for $90. Josephine Hedelweg for $60. Jean Greenwood for $30. Aaron Budak for $60. Marcus Fisher for $60. Lerman for $120. Colton Schlake for $60. E. Reyes for $30. McBurrow for $60. Quam for $60. Hove for $30. Leonardo for $90. Sarah Erkey for $30. Finley's Wings at Work for $5,000. And Doberstein Backhoe for $500. Again, all for the inclusive playground equipment. So that total was $26,876.07, bringing our year-to-date to $40,485.14. And with appreciation for those donations, I ask for your approval of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda. Second.
Motion made by Ms. Erkey, seconded by Mr. Schoenrock to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have MOU with Education Minnesota to merge ECFE teachers into the 23-25 collective bargaining agreement. Mr. Mayak, please.
This was the MOU that was on last month's agenda, along with the READ Act MOU. And we later found out that they were attached on the same document. They would have to scroll down further, and the MOU was there. But being we didn't have that in front of us, we tabled it to this month. And again, this MOU is just in relations, or in connection with the preschool teacher compensation improvement that we approved last spring. This is language that admin and NRHEG requested and needs and as part of their contract. Nothing financially changes. There is a section of the contract that already deals with the preschool's compensation. And so this just clarifies that the business is attended to properly. So I'd ask for your approval of the MOU.
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Mueller, seconded by Mr. Schoenrock to approve the MOU with Education Minnesota to merge ECFE teachers into the 23-25 collective bargaining agreement. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have the first reading of policy 506, or,
Yep,
yeah. you
yep,
wanted
this
to
is the
go
one
through-
that would
Yep.
typically be on the consent agenda,
Right.
but I had Sue remove that again, because we're adding a rather important and noteworthy document. It's the behavior expectation guidelines that the principals follow or use as they are dealing with the different behavior situations and try to develop some consistency. Personally, I've used a document like this for many years, and to add something and bring something like this into the district, again, it helps, again, eliminate inconsistencies, it helps keep things consistent then, and especially in those situations where a certain behavior, a certain consequence might not be dealt with for a length of time, just to give the principal some guidance and some oversight on how to address the different situations that need addressing in the discipline world. So again, I pulled that just to make mention of this and draw the attention to that as a first reading, and again, you can preview this and look it over. If there's any questions, we would address those and then have the second reading at our November meeting for approval. So I just ask for your approval of the first reading so we can continue on and dissect it and bring it to our second reading in November.
Anyone want to make a motion to approve the first reading?
Motion to approve the first reading of policy 506 of student discipline.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Miller, seconded by Ms. Tyre to approve the first reading of policy 506, student discipline. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have the 24 audit presentation before us this evening. Carla, I assume?
Yeah, I'll pass it to Carla, who will pass it to Kelsey.
Hey Kelsey, can you hear us? Excellent. Okay, they're ready for you whenever you're ready to go now.
Okay, if I share my screen, is it okay?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I share my screen, are you good listening?
Yeah, looks like it's coming up now.
Yep.
Yes, and they all have, we have it up here on a separate screen and they all have it in front of them on their Chromebooks, but, so we're good to go.
Okay. Perfect. Awesome. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Kelsey Larson. I am the manager on the district's audit. So tonight we'll try to keep it brief here and go through your audit opinion and responsibility. We'll look at your general fund, your other governmental funds, and then we'll also have some key performance indicators in there. Before we get into your audit results, I do just want to remind you that as auditors, we are engaged to opine on your financial statements on whether or not they are presented fairly and free from material misstatement. To form that opinion, we do a series of testing, whether it be sampling your disbursements, we get confirmations from your banks, we talk to your employees, really anything that we deem necessary to form that opinion. And we were able to issue an unmodified or clean opinion under GAAP, stating that your financial statements are presented fairly. And then along with our regular audit testing, we also do testing on Minnesota legal compliance. Some examples of that include making sure you have sufficient collateral with your banks, that you're following contracting bidding rules, debt procedures, paying your bills within 35 days, things like that. We had no instances of non-compliance noted this year. And then lastly, since you did spend over the $750,000 of federal grant money, that also required a single audit report, which is basically just more compliance testing around some specific federal programs, and we had no instances of non-compliance noted there either. Looking at your 2024 audit findings, these are the same findings as last year. They're very common for districts your size. It would be kind of a cost versus benefit to get rid of these findings. The first one just states that we help prepare some of those year-end adjustments needed for the financial statements. That second one, just stating that you had limited staff in order to segregate those duties. And lastly, just states that we help prepare those financial statements. Like I said, there was no change from the 2023 findings. As we move into some of the data here, I do just like to start off with your average daily membership, as that is a lot of drive for a district, grants. Some of the charts we'll see here are like on a per ADM basis. So just want to kind of put this out here that you ended the year with 768, and you are kind of seeing that decline downwards there. Starting with your general fund balances, this first chart is going to show you your general fund unassigned fund balance as a percentage of next year's budgeted expenses. So you do currently have that policy of 22 to 28% represented by that black line. However, you have been able to maintain above that, mainly in the lower 30 percentile. However, you were able to get a pretty healthy increase this year to 36.7. We'll kind of see the contributing factors there in a couple slides. Looking at your total general fund balance as a percentage of expenditures compared to your peers and the statewide average. Once again, you have been able to stay pretty healthy on top of them with quite a large increase this year. And then also just one thing to note is you have been following those trends quite a bit. From 20 to 2023, you had that little bit of an increase and then kind of the decline. So following the trends that we're seeing statewide. Digging into the general fund budget to actual here, so your revenues did come in over budget by almost $183,000. This is mainly just going to be contributing to the special education state grants. They came in over what you anticipated for. And then your expenditures came in under budget by almost $107,000. This was mainly related to purchase services in the sites and building program, and then also in the people support services, mainly due to that interdepartmental transportation chargeback. So overall, net increase in your fund balance of $558,000 when you had only budgeted for about a $270,000 increase. Looking at your general fund revenues per ADM and comparing to the statewide average and your peers within Region 9. So state sources, you're right in line, you're at about 11,000, right in line with your peers. Federal sources, you're a little bit below your peers. However, it sounds like you have some motivated board members and staff, so maybe get that looking a little bit better and up towards your peers some more. Federal sources do usually have a little bit more of eligibility requirements, so probably just the needs of your district has you a little bit lower there. And then local sources also a little bit lower, mainly contributing there is your property taxes, which we'll look at on the next slide. So if you look at property taxes on a per ADM basis and the average school district property tax per home and per 100,000 home value after credits, you are quite a bit lower than your peers in the statewide average there. However, this is due to your district not having an operating levy. And we do say around 75% of districts do have operating levies. However, as we saw in your general fund, you are operating pretty well without one. Moving along into your general fund expenditures, not much change here. you are still sitting around that 10 million mark. You did have a little bit of a decrease in 2024, mainly relating to capital outlay. You did have the purchase of buses and athletic equipment in 2023, and then you also paid off that ESG project debt during the year, so that debt service line is also a little bit smaller. And then the biggest thing to note here is if you look at your instruction colors, so that's mainly that yellow and then that tan right above that yellow, those are very consistent for the last 3 years, meaning you're not changing that funding too much there. Our next couple of slides are going to be these box and whisker graphs. They're going to kind of put you in percentiles, with that lower, lighter gray being 25 to 50 percentile, and then that darker gray being 50 to 75 percentile, with the lines being the outliers, and that yellow being the statewide average. So overall, you have been able to keep your general fund expenditures low, and on a per ADM basis, following that statewide trend up. We kind of see this, you know, your general fund expenses stay pretty much consistent, the same at that 10 million mark. However, with that decline in ADM is why we're seeing that slight increase year to year. Digging in a little deeper here, we have your elementary and secondary regular instruction per ADM. Kind of the same story here. We are seeing those increases as the expenses stay the same because of the lower ADM. It does look a little bit more dramatic here with the intervals on the side. However, it is only about a $300 increase per pupil. And we also have your special education expenditures per ADM. The last 4 years, you've been able to keep that very consistent at about that $2,000 mark. Moving into your food service budget to actual. So once again, a pretty healthy increase in fund balance of about $96,000. The biggest contributor there is going to be those revenues over budget, and those are mainly relating to federal grant funding and lunch sales being higher than you had anticipated for. Comparing to your peers here, so you have had a pretty drastic increase from 2021 to 2023. A lot of that was just due to spending down some of those fund balance and cash balances, as MDE only allows the 3 to 6 months of cash. You guys spent that kind of fast. MDE keeps extending that 3 months into that 6 months, so I think some of those districts are spending it a little bit slower, which is why we haven't seen that statewide data be such drastic, but I think you'll catch up, and then your expenses might also dip down a little bit more before that statewide average does, but overall, following the same trend that we're seeing. Community service budget to actual, so your net change in fund balances was just $300 over what you guys had budgeted for. Your revenues and expenses did come in over budget. That was related to increased participation in the SAC program that didn't get reflected in that final budget. And comparing to your peers here, once again, following that statewide average data with the steady increase, as we see, we have increased participation with lower ADM numbers, so I would anticipate to see that trend continue. Lastly, we have your debt service fund. So the top just has the debt you have outstanding with the final maturity and principal outstanding amounts. And then we also have your next 10 years of debt payments. So you do have that bus 32 and 34 purchase arrangement that matured in 2025. However, as you can see, it doesn't make that much of a difference in those payments for the next 10 years. The next time you'll see a change will be in 2028 and then again in 2033. You also have your cash and investment balances by fund. You had about a $600,000 increase, mainly in that general fund. And then also just want to point out, you do still have that unspent bond proceeds that is in that light green, your building construction, and those are restricted dollars. And that is all I have for you guys. Do you have any questions for me at all?
relatively quiet here, so that's a good thing, probably. Yeah. Pleasant figures, I think, is the assumption I give this. A little more growth than we had expected for our reserve, which isn't a bad problem. I keep saying we will someday experience the need for that, so.
And if I remember right, the approved budget was in the 120-ish range. Does that seem right?
At the beginning of that
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
Yeah, and then we had a real positive winter and whatnot, and.
Special ed funding was,
Yeah,
Better
so at the
substantially
end,
different.
it was nice, it was 2% up on revenues and 1% under, and that was a nice one. Kelsey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
One of the board members had asked at the beginning, these findings. Again, a district of our size trying to get away from that segregation of duties, that just continues to financially not make sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, the cost to hire and train someone new is probably not gonna outweigh the benefit of getting out of the finding. But obviously that would be something to talk about on your end if that is something that's within your budget to hire the necessary amount of staff to properly segregate your duties.
And that's usually where we've left it. We've never drilled down to, what does that, like, how many people do we have to hire to get away from this one finding, you know?
What that would look like, right?
We just kind of stop at this point and go, okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's usually around 4, and I think the biggest thing is also, if you do hire the right staff, you also need to go through those processes and kind of move around, who's doing what, and sometimes that's really hard to do, is like someone's always been doing it, and it's always been done this way, and so that's also part of the issue too, is you might have the right amount of staff, but you're not properly segregating those duties.
Yeah, maybe sometime when, I don't suppose you have a slow season, but maybe with sometime we could look at what it is you guys look at compared to what we have or what other districts have, and just out of curiosity, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was just a
Reach
little
out to
bit
me
of-
anytime, we can go through that.
Okay, sounds good.
That'd be good.
All right then.
okay. Thank you, Kelsey.
We can let her go.
Thank you, you guys have a great night.
All right,
You too.
thanks,
Thank
Kelsey.
Thank you. Great.
All right, is that something we had lined up for approval then?
Yeah.
Yes.
And we would entertain a motion to approve the 23-24 audit as presented.
I move to approve the 23-24 audit as presented.
Second?
Motion made by Mr. Schoenrock, seconded by Ms. Tyre to approve the 23-24 audit as presented. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a staff development plan and budget in front of us this evening. Mr. Myhock, please.
I gave you a document, last year's staff development plan that we presented, and this nice colorful chart with arrows pointing, to the right direction, very visually appealing. And again, that was our plan. This year's plan is in essence, it's a 12-page document of black and white words, which is our literacy plan. This year's staff development is really focused on the READ Act and the science of literacy. And so our literacy plan goes hand in hand with what we're working towards, where we're required to work towards with our staff development plan. So Jason can probably come in and give you some more details on the OLA training. Jason took the Train the Trainer program this summer. He's working with mainly elementary staff, 17, 20-ish
Yeah.
staff members, including yourself.
Yep. And
Uh,
secondary special ed teachers.
3, so 23 staff members going through this required READ Act training. Our staff member teachers that are not going through the training will have a variety of different literacy trainings, not READ Act trainings, but the content, the material is similar in that it's moving towards better understanding of the science of literacy that we incorporate into our classes. So on page 5 of this literacy plan document, it outlines the professional development. But really, again, the whole document is the basis of our staff development plan for this school year. And to say it one more time, all surrounded by or centered towards the READ Act. Then the second part of that motion is our budget. Again, you should have, the document is online with our budget that we set every year, and then I gave you a handout sheet here comparing the last 3 years and this year, what the budget kind of looks like and how we spent the different monies in the different categories. I say it all the time when I talk about financial things. This is kind of my version of a spreadsheet, so we can track things as well as possible. Carla has the spreadsheet, the master, the official, coding and everything. This sort of document just kind of keeps us on track when staff development requests come in, and you can see that we made a reduction in our staff development budget categories this year as a reduced expense for our general fund, that more of that staff development money can be spent on staff development things like our back to school workshop days and our staff development days throughout the school year. So the amount of money that we had for our certified staff to attend trainings was decreased. But again, if you look at the previous years, there's sufficient funds there, and if we exhaust those funds, we definitely make accommodations to get staff to the workshops or the conferences that they want to attend. And the same goes down the line. The one category is probably our extracurricular, our fine arts coaches and directors attend more of the conferences than anywhere else. I think up to this point this year, we have 6 requests for staff development funds. 4 of those are by coaches to attend the coaches clinics, and 2 of them are by classroom teachers to attend the conferences and workshops. Now the elementary, again, 17, 20 of those staff members are being bombarded with READ Act training, and so that in and of itself is a big chunk of the staff development. So we felt pretty secure that the funds that we had, the budget that we have in staff development would be sufficient for the different workshops and opportunities that staff request for. Again, we talked about the MOU that we approved this month in regards to the MOU that we approved last month, and that was the READ Act, that there are funds available, or funds that we received. The calculations and whatnot are somewhat of a mystery, but we have a ballpark, and that's going to be fairly close to the amount that we'll spend on teacher stipends for the training. There's 52 hours, 56 hours, I believe, is our training time to go through this OLA, the core training. And 16 of those hours are being accomplished or being met, being satisfied with our staff development days. And so then teachers get compensated for 36 hours at our staff development rate. So the work that they're doing outside of the school day, outside of the staff development day, is paid through staff development, but then the READ Act funds come in and make that pretty close to a wash. Yeah. So that is our staff development / literacy plan and our budget for the staff development committee. I'd ask for your approval on that motion covering those two topics.
I make a motion to approve the staff development plan and budget as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Tyre, seconded by Ms. Erke to approve the staff development plan and budget as presented. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Continuing on with staff development, committee and site teams. Mr. Mayock, please.
We report yearly who makes up our committee, and you can see the last names of the committee members. It's myself, the two principals, and Jason, our teaching and learning coordinator, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, probably 7 staff members. I say probably because we had one staff member that stepped down, and she was the committee chair last year, and she stepped down, so Jason's in the process of, determining who the committee chair will be. The reality is that Jason will take care of most of those duties with setting the agenda and reaching out to staff members, but it's good to have a staff member that's in that position, so staff can reach out to that person as well. And then we have one designee or one rep from each building. Mrs. Olson is the secondary school rep, and Miss Williams is our elementary staff development committee rep, so they typically are more available for the members of each of the buildings. So that's the makeup of our team and our committee and our site team. And I'd ask for your approval. And then, I'm sorry, Aaron Phillips is our board member rep on the team as well. And obviously in January, when we go through the organizational meeting, that could be up for anyone interested. So I'd ask for your approval of our committee and our site team.
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Mueller, seconded by Ms. Engel to approve the staff development committee and site teams as presented. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We need to set the date for the 25 organizational meeting. Mr. Mayak, it looks like January 2nd is your preference here.
That would be most ideal. Come in, get it done, and move forward. So
It's a 5:30 usually that we
yeah.
don't try to take too terribly much time with anyone's, but anyone have a problem with the January 2nd?
I'm gonna be in Tahiti.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? We'll have you zoom in. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve January 2nd, 2025 at 5:30 for the organizational meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Tyre, seconded by Mr. Schoenrock to set the date of January 2nd, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. here in Richland for the organizational meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. These are where annual change to the January and February of 2025 meeting dates due to holidays. Mr. Mayak?
Same thing, the third Monday, obviously, consistently, that follows Martin Luther King Jr. Day and President's Day will fall on that same third Monday, so typically we'll just move the date one day forward or back, however you want to look at that. We'll move it to the 21st, a Tuesday, and then the 18th of February, which is also a Tuesday. And that's past practice that we've been doing for a number of years.
We have a motion to approve those two dates, please.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by, was that Ms. Erke? I apologize.
It
Yeah.
was, yes.
Ms. Erke, seconded by Ms. Engel to set the regular board meeting dates for January and February 2025 to January 21st and February 18th of 2025. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'm gonna slide in here real quick again. We have our election poll date finalized now, correct? Did that work with everyone? There's a little bit of a bouncing around, but.
For canvassing.
The canvassing, yeah. Then it's
The 12th, yeah.
the 12th?
Sounds good.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have before us the Superintendent Michael Myhock's evaluation summary. As you're all aware, last month we met in closed session for the annual review of our superintendent. And it is customary that we publicly announce the results of that in a summary, so I will do that now. The NRHEG Board of Education met in closed session September 16th, 2024 for the purpose of the superintendent evaluation for calendar year 23-24. All members were present, including Superintendent Michael Myhock. 4 performance goal areas were discussed. Number 1 was superintendent providing proper communications and information. Number 2, superintendent providing safe, welcoming, learning environments for students, staff, and families. And number 3, superintendent presenting budgets and explaining district resources and focusing on public relations, instructions, and facilities. And number 4, superintendent providing professional development that promotes growth and stays informed on trends, innovative, and best practices. Discussion was held on all 4 goal areas and was concluded that Mr. Myhock meets or exceeds the BOE's expectations. Areas of strength were credited to Mr. Myhock on community involvement and the work representing NRHEG at county fairs this past summer. Compliments were given on the updates to the facilities, a weekly newsletter, and managing the budget. Mr. Myhock shared with the BOE that he feels that NRHEG is a great fit for him. The BOE appreciates the good working relationship with him. So read and recorded in the minutes of the October 21st NRHEG board meeting. Anyone have anything to correct or add to that summary? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve that summary.
I'll make a motion to approve the Mr. Myhock's evaluation summary.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Miller, seconded by Ms. Tyre to approve the superintendent evaluation summary as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Concludes our business for the evening. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schoenrock, seconded by Ms. Tyre to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Made in Maine.